Welcome back to the show, my friends. I am your host, Eric Szilagyi. If you've had an uncomfortable experience and you'd like to share it here on the show, please get a hold of me at contact.uncomfortable@gmail.com. The world wants to hear your story. They want to hear your experience. So reach out to me and let's get yours on the next episode of Uncomfortable. If you haven't yet, make sure to like us on Facebook and Instagram, both at Uncomfortable Podcast 65. And once you get a chance to listen or view a couple of the episodes, please make sure to leave us a 5-star rating and review. That alone is the most important thing you can do as a listener to get this in the algorithm and out in front of more people. With more people listening, that means more great stories coming your way. If a video is more your thing, then make sure to subscribe to Uncomfortable Podcast on YouTube, where you can get the video version of most shows. If that's where you like to listen to us, then please make sure you click like and subscribe so that you are notified with each and every release. Take a minute and check out the Uncomfortable link tree. It's the single best place that you can find anything and everything uncomfortable all in one spot. All of my Uncomfortable episodes, links to any of the Penford Media documentary series that I've been featured in, and links to every other podcast that I have had the pleasure of being a guest on. That's linktree/uncomfortable1, and uncomfortable is spelled just like the logo looks, with the lowercase u and the uppercase N. I got another Bigfoot show for you here, people. I got a gentleman from, let's say, the down below the thumb, somewhere between Detroit and Toledo, Ohio. Very, very close to 1965's Monroe Monster sighting. So if you're ready, let's get into it. All right, if you will, please give a warm, uncomfortable welcome to Mr. Scott Brush. Scott, welcome to Uncomfortable.
Thanks, man. I appreciate the opportunity and the invitation.
Glad to have you here, sir.
I apologize for the cough. I've been sick for like a month. I apologize. So I sound a little
for a month, man. You got to get that taken care of.
I know it's probably walking a million, but I'm the typical stubborn male, so we'll get there.
Friend of the show, Gabe Heiss, reached out to me and suggested you. Somehow he got a hold of you and you reached out to me. We had it set up for about a week ago. You had some kind of an emergency at the school you were working at. Glad we were able to get things together for this show. So thank you. I appreciate you being patient and rescheduling with me. Scott, you are more than an enthusiast in the topic, correct?
Absolutely.
You are a self-proclaimed researcher.
Yeah, field researcher, a little bit of both.
Okay. Before we get into your tactics of research and the results that you have come across in your research, why don't you go ahead and tell us, if you can, what prompted the interest in this? Did you have an experience? Did you have sighting? Let's get into your story.
It's a little bit different than that. Back in the day, I was like 6 years old, back in like 92, 93. All the kids in the library. Yeah, exactly. I know, right? I was 39 tomorrow. So
I was like 6 years old in 1971.
But all the other kids are looking at, Garfield, Calvin and Hobbes, all the big stuff at the time, like the Magic Eye books. I'm just over here looking at Bigfoot, demonology, ghosts, and just the idea of this hairy, at the time I believed it was, just like a gorilla in the woods. I was just fascinated, and it just took off. And it's like 30 years later, and now, I've had experiences. And looking back as a kid, there was a lot of phenomenon back then that I didn't know at the time because I was so young, that was actually Bigfoot phenomenon, teepee structures, tree breaks that, are unexplainable, some grunting when I was outside in these woods that I had no business being in at my age, but, we can all probably say that. And after that,
times
as I got older,
changed.
Exactly. Yeah. The street lights times are over, unfortunately, and after that, it just took off, and I'm like, now it's time to get out here and try to do something with this. I don't feel like this is just an interest. I almost kind of feel like it's a calling. you don't have too many 8-year-old kids that are kind of fascinated with this stuff. Most of them are terrified, and I just couldn't stop. My parents were like, "Stay away from this; it's scary," and I couldn't. It was just magnetic, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's just taken me places, and I've met so many great people that have had their own experiences and have been doing it for longer than I have.
Well, I grew up in a house. I was an only child. I was completely obsessed about UFOs by 5. Bigfoot came into the picture probably around 7 or 8. Um, that turned into the Bermuda Triangle and the Loch Ness Monster and Chupacabra and everything else that came across my way. Um,
The brain
Doug,
meltdown.
what's that?
The brain meltdown because you're like,
Yeah,
wait a
yeah,
minute,
yeah.
there's so much.
Never faltered in my belief of UFOs. So 54 years later, you can imagine my joy with the recent disclosure and the almost undeniable amount of videos that have been coming up. Now, the problem is AI. I am a very science minded and I think tech is amazing and I think it's cool and I love it, but I freaking hate what AI is doing to this topic because it is not like you've had enough muck and mire and shit to wade through for years through YouTube and photos and blurry videos and all the shit. There's been so much that you have to trudge through to find those little specks of things that grab you by the gut and say, "Ooh, now that one's fucking that that one makes my tummy feel weird." Uh,
Yeah.
you know, um, so again, I think AI is it's a phenomenal thing, but the usage is already out of hand with faking pictures and faking videos and it just I hate that it muddies it because it's already a muddy situation. And yeah, that could be an entire show in itself. So I'll move on. But
I got you there too. I'm into aliens. Like aliens got me for a while, and then just the Bigfoot kind of, everything is coming to total disclosure now. Full disclosure, I think. The sightings are increasing.
yeah.
It's like the veil's thinning between that world and ours. It's like, and what do you think about the drones over New Jersey? Do you think? I mean,
Well, here's my. I'm glad you brought that up. To be honest,
that's fascinating. It's like a tie-dye disco ball in the sky.
it is fascinating, and what I find strange about it is in the media, at least here in northern Indiana. Everything that you hear is what's coming out of the New Jersey area. Okay. A couple of sightings now over New York City. But when you start digging deeper, you're having sightings of these things in Arkansas, in Florida, in Georgia, in Arizona, California, Florida, if I haven't already said that. In the UK, around US military bases, in Argentina, in other countries, these are all happening, it seems, simultaneously. Now, I have seen, oh my God, I can't even guess how many videos I've seen of these drones. And I'm perplexed because some of them look very man-made. They look very nuts and bolts, very plane-like, very not hard to wrap your head around, except for the size. Because typically we don't see drones within the size range that these are being reported. Anything from a VW Beetle to a full size SUV in size, to like a small plane. But then there's some that really don't look like that, and they look stranger. They're there's there's problems with capturing them on cameras, and like there's even been a couple that from a distance look one way, but when zoomed in on, they seem to change their properties and become much more anomalous looking. So the fact that they're all happening, a lot of them are happening around military installations. You know, that makes me start to think two frames of thought. Either we're talking, maybe we are much closer to nuclear conflict than any of us realize, and extraterrestrials, ultra terrestrials, multidimensional beings, whatever the hell they are.
And who knows at this point? I mean, I've had to change my view 50 times on even what they are.
Yeah. You know, maybe they're like, okay, it's time. We got to step in. Or it's something that is new tech that we have, possibly reverse engineered, possibly not. But, you know, maybe from a security standpoint, a new way of keeping bases safe. All right. Now, last night around, I don't know, it was probably before 5 o'clock. I reached out to a friend of mine who lives in Sussex, New Jersey, and he has a Bigfoot uh, YouTube show called Shadow of the Big Red Eye. His name's Mike Famelot. Had him on the show early in my first season, and I sent him a message. I said, "Hey, Mike, long time no hear from. It's Eric from Uncomfortable. Two things. One, it's been a while since you've been on the show. I want to get you back on, talk about what you've been up to for the past couple of years, any new sightings, any new research developments, anything like that. Number two, if memory serves, you live in Sussex, New Jersey. Is the media making this bigger deal than what it really is, or is it as active as what people are saying in your area?" Didn't hear anything from him for about 3.5 hours, maybe 4 hours. 9:30 last night, he sends me a photograph. He says, "It's legit as hell." He's like, "We're out now. We are trying to capture him on film." And he sent me a photograph. He was near a stoplight. The light was red. He took a picture, and in the distance behind the stoplight were two white lights. When you zoom in on it, that's when it got weird, because when you zoom in to see what was off in the distance, the lights the lights were bright, but then they had like a negative black image around the bright light, and then above the black was a glowing halo. So you had something very bright circled with a really dark ring, and then light emitting from outside the edge of it. Two of them side by side. One looked like it was a little bit closer than the other one. Very strange looking photograph. Almost like you were looking into like a negative zone, like nothing, you know, like a black hole where there literally was nothing in that blackness, but then it had bright light all the way around it. So very strange, but like basically he was a man on a reporter on the streets last night and said it was happening. He also said that, let me pull up the message here. He did say that, this is his words verbatim. So they are flying over Picatinny Arsenal, which basically protects New York City from air threats with lasers. The government knows what these are. I feel they're being developed over at the Arsenal. And, you know, as much as as much as I hope that these are unidentified UAP, extraterrestrial, ultra terrestrial, super beings, my gut tells me that what we're seeing in the skies, for the most part, is something that is man-made, and these things are basically unmanned. Because a couple of videos last night, there's literally my girlfriend sent it to me on Instagram. And again, AI, it doesn't necessarily mean it's real. It looks real. It looks like it checks out. But she said this literally looks like something out of Space Invaders, because there's this drone. It's in a slightly aggressive forward stance in the air, and then you're seeing like tracer rounds that are coming out of the drone, firing at the ground. What are we shooting at? I don't know if that's over a training area and, they have things set up for it, or I don't know. It's bizarre, and it has got my attention crazy. It's almost an unhealthy fascination with it at this point for me, because, I'm having a hard time talking to you without looking to see what the latest video is. So
the two things that got me into aliens, honestly, I love the Phil Schneider story, the underground base. Yeah,
yeah.
Oh my gosh. He came out to Michigan a lot, I believe, to Lansing, and spoke like about his experiences. And I believe his story. And then I also like the Dulce base, underneath New Mexico. That one that one terrifies me. That's like the train wreck. You know what I mean? You got to look at it even though you shouldn't.
Well, isn't it strange that Phil ends up committing suicide with his own catheter?
Missing, like 4 fingers on one hand.
Yeah. Doesn't
and yet he tied it himself, but
yeah.
And then suicide.
And then he had already been cremated when his wife went to claim the body.
It's all coincidence.
Yeah, I'm sure it is.
Yeah, absolutely. We think too much.
Yeah, it's much better if we all stay dumb.
Exactly.
I agree.
It's boring if we stay dumb.
But that's the way they want us. So
exactly.
So Scott, all right, you indicated that you looking back on it, you saw some things as a kid. Well, before we get to that, what's your take on the drone thing?
Honestly, I think that some of it is obviously government or military technology, but I also think some of it is also otherworldly. Like, so there's some sort of collaboration going on where if we have some real extraterrestrial entities in the sky flying these things, but we also have some government made ones, everybody's just going to believe it's the government. So I think it's like partially staged, but the smart people like us that know what's going on and smell something fishy, I think there's a mixture of both up there, like organic ETs and manufactured equipment.
Yeah, it's interesting because Jeremy Corbell and George Knapp, I love and hate those guys because I love the stuff that they have released, and I like the way they handle their conversations and everything. But you can only tell me, oh man, we got so much stuff that's going to come out. You're just not going to believe it. Well, fucking let it go, dude. Let's see it. Quit telling me you got it and start letting it out. But one of the things that they kind of brought to light was the jellyfish looking robotic thing that was floating over the U.S. installation across seas. Very bizarre looking thing. Very, very unnatural. If you squint your eyes a little bit at it, you can almost like imagine a humanoid torso fitting into that, and being. But so you have that, and then within the past couple of days, one of the videos that I saw still images from of these drones, and apparently this one was over the States here somewhere, but near the ocean, looked like an illuminated manta ray. And I'm like, okay, now some of these that they're showing in these videos, some of them look like they're squares, some of them look like they're rectangular, some of them look like they're have an X body to them, some of them look like they're literally a small airplane. It looks like they have a nose and a fuselage and wings. Um, there's so many different styles, and
They're like Transformers, basically.
well, yeah. I mean, it's like, holy fuck, what's going on here? I mean, so I don't disagree with you when you say I think there's a component of them that are things that we have within our arsenal, but then there's others that it's just like, where the fuck are these from?
It's hard, it's like the more you think about it, you're just like, okay, we're going to be here all fucking year if we go down the rabbit hole. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I got so many theories on what they are. And I'm the kind of guy that needs to be comfortable with a theory. Otherwise, I can't shut my mind off about it.
Yeah.
Like, okay, I can accept this for today. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You said you changed your perspective on where you think they're from, or a number of times, and I've done that as well. I mean, when I was a kid and most of my growing up, I was firmly convinced that they have to be coming from somewhere outside of our world. I don't think that anymore. I think that they are. I think that they are here. I think that they have been here for a long time. Whether they are us from the future, whether they are whether they are an entity that lives alongside us, but within a different dimension, the one that we cannot often view. I don't know what the component is that why they come. Because there's so many videos of UAPs. I hate that name, UAPs. They're UFOs, for fuck's sake. Let's just call them
stop
UFOs.
changing everything.
Don't
Let's
change
leave
the thing.
leave shit alone.
But there's so many that they seem to phase in and out. It's like it's almost like they're not completely here, and then they are completely here, and then when they decide to take off, they're again kind of in between. So I don't know if that's a component to dimensional travel or what, but the USO, the amount of sightings that have been happening in the water and in and around the water was never. It's been around for a long time, but like even in my 20s, maybe early 30s, you would hear about it very, very seldom. Now it's gained a lot of popularity, and it's getting talked about a lot. 70% of the Earth's surface is water. What better place to hide? I mean, we know more about the surface of the moon than we do about the bottom of our own ocean. So, yeah, I think they're here. I think they're here, and I think they've been here for a long time. Whether they are like, I hate saying this because it sounds really stupid, and unbelievable, but I don't know if they are necessarily a part of our daily reality, or if we only see them in certain times, because they've crossed into our perception, or we have somehow gone somewhere that the veil is thinned between those two worlds and we can see through it. I don't know which is more less disturbing, if we're getting to peer into their side of things, or if they're coming and popping into our side of things. I think that the latter is probably the more accurate, but yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. I have a show coming up. I have two gentlemen who are charter captains out of St. Joe, Michigan, and had one of them reach out to me, and he said He's like, do you ever do many shows about UFOs? And I said, I'm open to it all the time. I said, they just don't come around that often. Because most of them are, I saw a strange light in the sky. It didn't move the way it was supposed to. It was barely bigger than a star. Can't really tell you any more than that. So there's not a lot to talk about, and he said, have you ever seen Unsolved Mysteries, where they did a show about a bunch of UFOs that were tracked on radar out over Lake Michigan back in 1994? And I said, yeah, I absolutely have. I said, I know the story well. I live about 25 miles away from St. Joe, Michigan. And back in 94, when those UFOs made their way down to the Benton Harbor, St. Joe area, I was very aware that was going on. And, I didn't have any way of going there and it just was, it wasn't like I was going to be able to investigate it. But I was very aware of it. I talked to another gentleman who later, because that happened, I believe, in March of 94. And those UFOs were captured on radar for over 2.5 hours. And I had a gentleman who was along the St. Joe beach later that summer, witnessed the same exact thing. And then when it left, he witnessed 2 military jets coming across the lake from the Chicago area in pursuit, headed in the exact same direction that the lights had left. These guys are charter captains that go out early morning. They said they usually hit the water at about 4:00 in the morning during summer. And they typically take their charters about 10 miles out. And he said, almost every morning we will see the lights. And he says, we're 10 miles out, straight out of St. Joe. And he says, if you were to draw a line from us to Gary, Indiana, that would be the direction that you would be seeing the lights. He says, I've got other captains, because he's like, when the lights are out, he said, we're all on the radio. He says, we've reported it to the Coast Guard. We have conversations with each other. Hey, Charlie, have you seen it? Yep, I see him. I got eyes on him. Does Pete know that they're out there yet? And he's like, Pete, you on here? He's like, yeah. He's like, have you seen him? And he's like, no. He says, look to the southwest. And then Pete's like, yep, I see him. So where they're seeing these lights are the same place, the same part of the Michigan Triangle that goes out from Benton Harbor into the lake and up to around, I think it's Muskegon area where the triangle forms. But they're seeing these same lights in the same area that event in 1994 ended up. Once they had moved down from Muskegon, they were that very same area that was off of between St. Joe and Gary. So, it's been ongoing for years. And now I've got a show that's coming up with the 2 of the charter captains, plus the MUFON director, Bill Konkoleski from the state of Michigan, who is going to bring in collaborating evidence or collaborating reports that will show that ever since 94, when that was first reported, there have been, I think he said, nearly 300 additional reports since then. And the one gentleman said that on July 3rd of 2022, he was actually on the beach at St. Joe. And he said there were quite a few people out there. He said everybody was kind of pre-gaming for 4th of July. Excuse me. And he said they witnessed a craft that was relatively low. They could see the underbelly of the craft and the lights, and it came over the beach and followed the beach line. And he said people had eyes on it for nearly a half hour. It was moving so slowly. He said it was low enough that whatever it you should have been able to hear something. And he's like, we didn't hear anything. So that should be an interesting show.
Absolutely. I'll tune into that one for sure if I'm available.
But we're here to talk about Bigfoot. So, and we're 35
hey,
minutes
rabbit holes, man.
35 minutes into it. We've barely covered Bigfoot. So you indicated that as a child, you looking back on it now, you saw things that, probably should have pointed you, but that's not where your brain was at the time. What was the catalyst? What was the thing that happened at an age where you put two and two together? What happened that put you on this path to wanting to research?
I think that, as a kid, I mean, I'm from northern Michigan, way up top, like not quite the UP, but really not all that far either. And there's so much untamed wilderness up there.
Oh my God, I mean? It's incredible. I love it up there. It's phenomenal. It's God's country.
Absolutely.
But yeah, there's places where, man, the neighbors are far and few between.
Exactly. But what got me interested, though, was like when you're 6 years old, you can't do a whole lot. But looking back on all the experiences I had, being too little to know what they were till the research later on in life kind of, explained it to me. Yeah. I couldn't do anything. But when I got older, I'm like, all right, let's go to a place where it's a known Bigfoot hotspot, or at least have had sightings. And that was in Athens, Ohio. And that was literally just July of 2023 was my first experience that really said, okay, I need to tell people about this. I need to share this. And then just when I think that's the big one, the fact that there's one like here in my local area, there's like a whole clan of Bigfoot back there. And my first experience back there is a little more important to me because it's here in my home state. And it's kind of like all my life as a kid. It's like, I want to have a Bigfoot experience in the state of Michigan. Just nobody thought it would be in an urban area.
Yeah.
And now it's like, maybe it's because we're imposing on the territory, all the new developments and, hotels and condos and stuff. They're just kind of taking what might be left. But then again, I also believe they're personally believe they're interdimensional, and they just kind of pop in here and there. So it could be any number of things, but I think if you see them, they want to be seen. They're not going to reveal themselves to just anybody.
Okay, so you believe they're interdimensional, and I'm not throwing shade at that at all, because I do not discount and I hate this term too, the woo. I don't discount it. I think there's things in this world that can do things that we don't understand. And, 500 years ago, it was considered magic, but it was natural. It was natural sciences. We just didn't understand it. We didn't know how to explain it. So what's your experience that leads you to believe that they are interdimensional?
Actually, at some point, I'll actually send you the video that I have of a story that I'm about to tell you. Me and my buddy had went out, to the research site, as I like to call it, and we weren't even expecting. I saw it first, and he was able to see it too, and I wasn't expecting to see that. But like when you get here, it's just in the back of a local park, and there's like this clearing that goes straight down for like half a mile with no trees.
Okay.
And a perfect spot, like if you can picture a big glowing portal opening in like a clearing where the trees are taken out, that's what it was. And there's always was activity down there, but that night we were going. I'm looking down there. All of a sudden, it's like this big glowing orb shows up. There's natural gas lines under there, and being a researcher, I have to debunk first, as much as I hate it. And I'm like, okay, maybe something with the natural gas had some sort of reaction with something over there, and it just kept getting bigger. And then I'm seeing shit come out of this thing. literally bipedal figures. I actually have the photos of that too, the stills from the video. And
Okay.
this is
Now,
like
all
2,
right.
3 in the morning.
You understand that when you make bold claims like that and you tell me that you have pictures, people that are listening to this are going to expect to be able to go to my Instagram page and look at these pictures.
Absolutely. You have my permission to have it.
Okay. All right. I got to see that.
Absolutely, man.
Because
I would not say that if I did not have the tangible proof in this very phone that we are talking through right now.
That's very similar to one of the experiences that the Bigelow team had encountered at Skinwalker Ranch when Bigelow was there with his research groups.
And dude, I love Skinwalker Ranch. Oh, I actually read about that when I was younger, but when the show came out, I'm like, yes.
How many? So you had figures coming out of a portal, and they were coming into your reality. And as they came out, they went where?
Like the tree line is right over here to the right, and it was like they were just like taking a break. Hey guys, let's go out to recess. And they're literally jumping into the tree line. The next morning, I go out there and I see a huge tree break roughly in the same area that the portal was. I think some tree breaks are just they can't bear the weight of the Bigfoot, so they snap. And other ones I think are territorial markers. In this case, I think they were just having fun, and it broke. And it was literally the trunks about that big around too. And I'm just like, what's snapping this? There was no wind, green tree. And it's in a spot where there's not even any other trees around to even, possibly explain knocking it over. This was like something just got too high and snapped it right over, just like a twist, and just pushed right to the ground.
So your thought is that one of the creatures broke the limb, or that the limb was broken by the portal as it was opening?
One of the creatures from the portal, as he walked out, jumped into the tree line. That's how I believe it broke.
Okay. That's fascinating. I
know this shit sounds crazy.
I gotta see this picture.
I'll send it all to you, man, for sure. Can I send it to the same email that you sent the link for this?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep. And you said this was just recent?
The portal video was end of February, early March of this year. I believe they move more in cold weather. That's why I tend to do my research when there's less chance of it being human contamination. It's like a -5 here right now. I'm going to go out there and do research because I know nobody else is. And I know I believe the Bigfoots move better in the temperature. I think they even like it. Like they operate better than they do in the summertime because it's so hot. I think they're better in the cold.
Okay, so let me get your theory on this. All right, if they are interdimensional, if they are coming into our reality from theirs, what do you think? What's the attraction?
Well, I mean, I gotta say something so I have a reference point for this part of it. I'm not gonna go far with it, but I think that they're also biblically connected. I think that Bigfoot are essentially like, and obviously I believe, the Nephilim story from the Bible a little bit, the fallen out, the angel, when the angel offspring, the giants. Yeah, I believe that they're like descendants of the Nephilim, like they're descendants of Cain. So I think they're like flesh and blood creatures, but they're cursed, like, with this appearance. And so I think that it's kind of like, what happens when you go away from home for a while? You get homesick. I just think they kind of flash back and they want to pop in, check out the planet and just, kind of come back to their old stomping grounds. Because I think they're creatures of habit. They're going to return back to the same place more than once. And I think here is because I have the river.
I got to ask, and believe me, I'm not trying to be argumentative with you at all.
Oh, no.
But I got to know, why would they be interested in being in the Pacific Northwest or in the Midwest, in Michigan or in Ohio, when they weren't here before? I mean, if this is biblically related, why wouldn't they be showing up only over where they were from.
I think they're just always here. That's where the cloaking and all that stuff comes in. I just think that not the people who are lucky enough to have a legitimate Bigfoot sighting are supposed to. Like I said, I think if you stumble upon one, no, you didn't find a sleeping Bigfoot on accident. That Bigfoot wanted to be found. I think people are chosen to see these things. And once you go out to a spot and you have an experience and you continue to go back to that place, they trust you. And that's why I have so many experiences, because it's like, Scott's back. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The other day, I found a pink bow about 9 feet up off the ground on a little twig, like a tree branch. Yeah. This thing was like a roach clip, pretty much, with a pink bow, and it was rusted. This is 10 degrees outside. You know, is somebody walking their child out, you know, in this cold? I think it's like gifting. I think it was left there for me. Like, hey, we're friends. We trust you.
Have you had any kind of experiences with them that were like a personal experience?
You know, let me see. I can't say anything like real personal. I think that activity tends to happen more when you're by yourself. So I've had, you know, logs thrown in my direction that were this big, like not directly at me, but hey, you're not alone out here. Yeah. I think those are times where it's like, we don't want you out here. Please leave.
And what do you think the difference is? Why do you think there are times where we don't want you out here, and then there's other times that, you know, we trust and we'll go ahead and we're going to show ourselves to you?
I think it's just like, you know, you or me, let's say we have a hard day at work and we just kind of want to come home and unwind and not deal with anybody. I think they just kind of want to have some privacy and just sort of stay away, just like we do. You know, honestly, I think that they're pretty much a primitive human race. And even though they're primitive, they still have a lot of the same traits and abilities and, you know, feelings and stuff that we do. So I think they have free will just like we do as well. And if they're having a bad day and you're in their house, I mean, you're going to kick your company out, you know, if they're in your home and they're causing a ruckus or whatever. Yeah. So I just think they're just like we are in that aspect.
You know, the religious aspect of it, it gives me problems, because though I believe in God and I believe in Jesus Christ, I don't think Jesus Christ was his name. I think he had a different name. You know, I don't think Christmas was the day he was born. So, but yet I have my belief.
And that's why this is interesting. You know, I can sometimes hear somebody else's opinion where it's like, oh man, that doesn't conflict with mine. I can actually work with that too. You can't just be so zoned out. You have to be willing to mingle with other people's opinions, right, and be open-minded. Otherwise, right, it's not a field for you.
You know, but it's like to give this. I can almost buy into the idea that they might be descended of Nephilim bloodlines, but I have a problem thinking that they would actually be Nephilim.
I don't believe they're Nephilim. I believe they're the descendants as well.
But for me, so, you know, we're talking crazy shit now. So
that's why it's called the Uncomfortable Podcast.
It is. So if there's truth, if there's any truth to where we came from, all right. So Bible says, boom, there's Adam and Eve. We're talking, we're naked, we understand, everything's chit chatty, and we have cognizant thought and everything, you know, just like that. But yet we have fossil records, and we have things that show that we have been here for millions of years, and that timeline doesn't line up with what the Bible says. You know, there's a big gap there. You know, you almost have to be one or the other. my mind says that religion and science can work together. They can coexist. But until both groups are willing to let it coexist, there's always going to be that massive separation. So, you know, there's been talk for decades about the possibility of genetic manipulation, DNA manipulation, whether it had been by a divine action, whether it was, you know, we were some fairly smart monkeys that God decided to, hey, let's level these guys up because, you know, they're showing promise. Let's level them up. Whether it was God, whether it was extraterrestrials, whether it was ultra terrestrials. And to me, it makes sense that if you were going to take a group of anything and alter it, you would want to do that in a very smart way and hope, instead of just hoping that you've made a good decision and that they're gonna work out. You would have a control group that you would leave alone and remain as is. And then you would have a group that you would alter, and you would see the difference over an immense span of time. What will the original group do? And what will the group that we've changed, what will they do? So a lot of times my brain goes to, I'm definitely in the camp that these things are not just an animal. All right. There's way too many reports that these things exhibit high levels of intelligence and human-like behavior. So what if they're the original us? And their dislike for us is because they recognize that we were altered, and we are no longer pure. We are not what they were. So it would make sense that they would not like us. They would either be envious of us because they didn't get chosen, or they would hate us distinctly because we shouldn't be what we are. So that's kind of where my head is at. That they could possibly be the original us. We are the next level. We have leveled up, and you know, who's better off? They're still living off the land. They're still living in the wild. They are not they're not inhibited by anyone's crazy laws and taxes and all those things. They can live on a piece of property without having to pay taxes. We, on the other hand, we have turned into a cancer in this world, and we pretty much destroy everything that we touch, even though we think we're pretty fantastic. So, I mean, that's kind of my mindset on what these could be. Again, I'm completely open to being 1000% wrong.
That's the first time I've heard that theory, and I find that one interesting. Like, even though I believe what I believe, I still love to hear what everybody else thinks, because it's like, okay, we don't know. You know, it could be all of our ideas and theories. It could be one of them. That's the beauty of this field.
Or it could be none of them. And we're
exactly, and it could
all
be
batshit crazy, and it's completely different than what any of us think.
Do you like to read?
What's that?
Do you like to read? I have an awesome book for you to read.
I wish I could say yes, but I have what about 10 or 12 years ago was diagnosed as late onset adult ADHD. So when I go to read, I can get through a half a page, and you know, it could be a topic I am super into and I'm very interested in it, but the next thing I know is shit, I got to write a grocery list. Got to remember to do that.
I gotcha.
I got to write. Oh shit, I forgot to pay the bills. I got to pay the bills. I wonder what Joe's doing. I haven't talked to Joe in a long time. I should send him a text. And
It's
then,
Hollywood Squares up here.
and then I'm like, God damn it, I got to go back to the beginning of the page again. I got to start reading again. And I get halfway. I barely get past the place that I stopped the last time. And my brain is going through, 14 other things that, so it's very, it's very frustrating for me to read. And when I do read, it has to be something that is concise, and I can engage it for a short period of time, and then let my brain flip the fuck out, and then I can go back and read something else small, But yeah, it's very frustrating. I really wish. I mean, my kids have a great love for reading. My girlfriend has a great love for reading, and for me, it's just like, if I'm not visually stimulated, I can't keep my attention. So
I can give you the Cliff's Notes. That's the beauty of this book.
all right.
It actually opened my eyes a little bit. It's called Bigfoot, Clan of Cain, the belief of there being descendants of Cain.
Yeah.
And in a nutshell, in 1836, at the time, there was this dude named David Patton. He was trying to build his church. And he was out on his horse or whatever at the time, and basically a Bigfoot walked up the hillside and started walking alongside him. And it explains how, and this is like from the dude's diary. He's like, I was terrified, but it didn't seem to want to hurt me, so I asked it who it was, and it turned and it started talking how I'm Cain. This was my curse because I killed my brother Abel. So that's I'm like, oh shit. If you're in the woods and there's this 10-foot tall ape-like creature staring you in the face, you're either going to shit your pants or you're going to want to kill it. So I started to buy into it that maybe Bigfoot is the curse. Because after God cursed him, he went over back to, I cannot remember what the world was. I think it was like Nod or something, east of Eden. He made love to his wife and they had Enoch. So I'm like, dude, he was already cursed when they had Enoch. Enoch was said to be gifted with special powers too. What if you can pass on your supernatural abilities, to your kids? That's basically what the Bible says. I'm not saying one way or the other, telling people what to believe, but it's there and it's interesting whether you believe it or not.
Well, I agree that it's very interesting, and I think it's thought provoking. I don't know why I have such a. I don't know why
I was where you're at.
I don't know why I have such a block for that. I think, I'm going to say this, but then on the other hand, I'm going to retort it because, children are born every day, right? Children are a miracle. Okay. But in the biblical sense of God showing his work on a regular basis, doesn't seem to really happen a lot. Now, again, kids are born every day. I believe that's a miracle. And, so yeah, every time a child's born, there's proof that, God exists. All right. But like, so in the big picture of the Bible, the Nephilim, there's not a lot written about it. Now there's peripheral books that have been omitted and other books that have been discarded and said, we don't need these books because it muddies the waters and we just need to concentrate on this one book, the Bible. I think that, like, in my upbringing in the Catholic religion, if those other books would have been a part of the conversation, I would have been a lot more apt to buy into and pay a lot more attention to and be a lot more interested in the whole story. Because those weird things are what always intrigued me and attracted to me. So,
exactly. And that's why you got this going on. That's awesome. Like, I hope to be in your shoes one day, you know what I mean? Or at least be a guest on It's Audible, one or the other.
so like the idea that Bigfoot is going to announce to someone that he is Cain. That, what? Okay, all right. But so then going back to a prior statement that you made about how many of these things you think exist. And you said, what, in the neighborhood of 5, 6, 7,000?
That's just in the state of Michigan alone, I would say. That's me being conservative.
Okay.
I don't want to
Okay.
sound
And
crazy. You know what I mean?
no, I get it. And, I mean, I think there's this made the rounds some years ago. I don't remember exactly who it was. It was a fairly recognizable name where they said, somewhere in the neighborhood of maybe 300 per state. I think that at the very minimum, yes. I think probably more depending on locale. But if you've got, 50 some states and, 7,000, roughly 7,000 per. So are they all descendants of Cain?
What if we eliminate the idea for a second of them, let's say living like in the woods of the UP? What if that's like their vacation home? What if coming to Earth is like their time to get away from their own planet? And there's just so many of them because this is not where they typically reside. You just happen to be in the right place at the right time and be chosen by them to be seen. You know what I mean? So it's like that's personally what I believe along with that. Like, you know what? Let's go chill on the UP for a while. They got good taste. I'm not going to lie.
I don't disagree. It's a wonderful place to be. Spent some time up there this late summer, early fall. It was a long weekend. It was too short, but we packed a lot in. Went over to the island. We were up in St. Ignace. We went up to Whitefish Point. Met a great guy in Mackinac City. Before he went over the bridge, he had a place called Mystery Town, USA, and we were pulling.
I'm sold already.
we were pulling into a gas station because I had a piss really bad, and I was like, I was not going to make it much further. And as we were pulling through this parking lot, I saw a large carved Bigfoot statue out of like a tree. And I'm like, oh man, that's cool. And, went into the gas station, did my thing, came back out. And when she got back out to the car, I said, I want to go look at that statue again. We pulled back around to the other parking lot and there's a statue and they had it all decorated for Halloween already. And there I am, I'm standing there and there's a sign above it says Mystery Town, USA. And I was like, oh, this is going to be one of those hokey ass, little shops with, couple of little plastic green aliens in there and whatever. But we walked in to see. Guy was super friendly there, the owner. And we were walking around taking a look. He had a lot of really nice clothes, like different types of apparel. Found a really cool sweatshirt with the Michigan Dog Man on the front of it.
Awesome.
They had a Bigfoot silhouette there that was 8 foot tall on the wall, and then it had increments of 1 foot, and you could go over, stand up against it, and take your picture. And I'm 5'9", and an extra 8 foot silhouette on the wall. Staggering how small 5'9" is compared to 8 foot. So when you start thinking about the idea that some people report the 9 foot, I know Robert Kreider out in New Mexico says one of the adult males, the largest of the adult males, is probably cresting in near 11 foot.
Good Lord.
I've held the track cast from that male. And
how wide is that?
I couldn't tell you how wide. It has to be 9.5 inches wide, 10 inches wide, but 23 inches long from the radius of the heel to the front of the big toe.
So this
23
thing
inches.
has got to be 900, 1,000 pounds.
So when you start thinking about
Woo,
a normal
terrifying.
size individual next to something like that, that tends to put into perspective for me, because you go to a zoo and see a polar bear. Polar bear is a big fucking animal. An elk is a big fucking animal. But when you're talking about something that's bipedal, stands upright on two legs, and can be in the neighborhood between 8 and 10 plus feet tall, that seems supernatural. So from that perspective, I will entertain, your belief that seems a little unrealistic.
Yep. I mean,
Yet,
that's why I respect that you threw that little bit in there too, because I like how open-minded you are about that aspect of it. Like,
yeah.
I'm willing to believe whatever comes at me that's definitive proof, but right now,
Well, I think
based
you
on
have to. You have to.
yeah,
You can compartmentalize. You can have your core beliefs, and you can compartmentalize other things that you might entertain are a possibility. And then you can compartmentalize things that you say you think is just complete and utter bullshit. But I think you have to take, you can't discount any of it. You just can't.
I mean, there's a theory that Bigfoot may be aliens. There's been plenty of sightings where there's been a UFO and then suddenly a Sasquatch shows up.
Yeah.
If Bigfoot's an alien, I can buy into that, and that could be another reason why they're interdimensional. That isn't just a biblical connection. I mean,
right.
Like there's so many things that could be right and can make sense. Like there's almost too many possibilities. So that's why I'm always out there. I'm trying to get new stuff. So it's like, how can I further my research to the point where things become a bit more conclusive? But as of right now, I'm leaning in supernatural because that's what I've experienced. I just can't explain it. I mean, what's going to throw a log that's like 8 inches around, 6 feet long, with no opposable thumbs in almost negative degree temperatures at a high rate of speed as well? Like, I didn't feel threatened, but I felt like, okay, this is your warning. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I'm what? Unless there's somebody out there playing pranks, throwing things. There's nothing else that really makes any sense. I can't. There's no bears back here. Again, this is a very urbanized area. But again, too, there's deer back there. There's rabbits back there. The river's like about a mile to the west. So you're not allowed to hunt back there. So if they do indeed have the need to eat from like a mammal standpoint, that's a free game preserve for them. Right. So I think that's another reason why they're going back there, because it's like, why wouldn't we? We don't got to worry about this place getting overhunted or anything like that.
So when you go out and you do your research, I spoke with a gentleman down in Tennessee, I believe it was, who fancied himself a Bigfoot researcher after having and I don't discount the fact that he probably had an experience. But then that wasn't good enough. Then he had another experience that was, I won't go into it. That was just batshit crazy. And
it's cool to listen to, but yeah.
But when I asked him, as a researcher, what are you going out there with? What are you taking? What's in your bag of tricks that you are trying to capture evidence of these things? And I'm expecting to hear that I'm carrying a couple of pounds of plaster of Paris, a can of silicone, so that I can spray the print and have it release well with the plaster of Paris when it dries, instead of pulling all the dirt out with it. I'm expecting him to carry a a bucket and either water or know that the water is going to be near where he's at so that he can mix the plaster of Paris. I'm expecting that he's got some kind of filming equipment, GoPro, camera, something, a camcorder. I'm expecting to hear trail cams. I'm expecting to hear, even on the outside edge that, it might be something electromagnetic. So you're carrying some ghost hunting equipment as well, like EMF detector or something to, find something that's anomalous in the area when you're having these experiences. And his answer to me was, well, I have my backpack and, I had my backpack and binoculars, and I'm like,
we bird watching, or
I'm like, all right, dude. Well, you're not a researcher. You're a dude taking a hike, and you're hoping to have an experience. So that
I'll be honest with you,
that
man,
on one end of the spectrum, that being on one end of the spectrum, as far as what are you doing to constitute research?
Now, first of all, most of my best evidence, I'm going to be honest with you, I have found when I was just out there to hike with no intention to do any Sasquatch research.
Okay.
So I was completely unprepared other than my phone. And my phone has proven obviously the most reliable piece of equipment I have, because I believe if you're going out there all techie and film crew ready, that can almost be too much. Okay. I'm about like on-site procurement. OSP, on-site procurement for me. If I'm going to wood knock, it's going to be from a piece of wood that's in that area where there's activity. I'm not going to bring anything from the outside. I'm not bringing any weapons with me, because that could also give off the vibe that I have a hurtful intention. So I go out there like, I do got my backpack, but it's got like water in it and a first aid kit. That's about it. Extra socks, because I'm former military, so that's kind of hammered into my brain.
Well, thanks
and
for your
sometimes
service.
It gets, no worries, man, my pleasure. But I go out there, I'm a minimalist. I consider myself a minimalist traditional researcher. I'll do the whooping sounds. I'll do wood knocks. I'll also like scan the area after I do that to see. Oh, because I believe go over your evidence later on, because your camera on your phone or anything is going to see what the naked eye can't.
Right.
So any video I take, I drag it through frame by frame. And when I find some evidence, I screenshot it and stamp it to where that part of the video where I got that screenshot from. Can I
ask what your experience in the service was?
I mean, I was supply. I was a 2S051 logistics readiness squadron at Travis Air Force Base in Northern California. It was a great time, man. I don't regret it at all. I was there for about 3 years.
Yeah.
And when I got out later on though, I was glad to be home. You know what I mean? Like, It wasn't a 20-year thing for me. It was time to kind of move on to different pastures. Not better, because that made me the man I am today, for sure. But yeah, it was an overall great experience, so I enjoy it. And I believe a lot of what I learned in there, the situational awareness and attention to detail, truly helps my Sasquatch research, for sure.
That is where I was going with that. I really enjoy talking with ex-military, current military, first responders, law enforcement. And the reason for that is that as trained observers and people who are expected to perform at a high level under extreme duress, for some reason, their experiences resonate with me a little bit higher than just Joe Blow down the road. And it's because of that training that they've had. It's because of the amount of high pressure situations that they've had to work in, and still perform at a high level. So as a trained observer, that door behind you just opened and closed
I
I'm
swear
hoping
to you.
I'm hoping you have somebody else living in that house, because if not, you got a fucking ghost, bud.
No, that's literally I got 3 cats, right? That's my Maine Coon cat. And
Okay.
literally he goes in the bathroom and he shuts the door behind him because he wants privacy. That literally means don't fuck with me. That means don't fuck with me right now. And if you
Oh
walk
wow.
in and turn the light on, he looks up at you like, "What the fuck are you doing in here? This is my." I'm like, "Oh right, excuse me, I'll leave." So he goes in and out when he wants to get away from it all. It's hilarious.
Wow. Okay. All right. Because I was pretty sure I didn't see anybody there, and I'm like, that door definitely just closed.
I was laying on the couch back here one night. The first time I discovered that he did that, I'm like, "What the hell?" Like, I know that most of the city is haunted, but come on now. And I went in there and I'm like, I got a video somewhere. I'll have to find it of him. I put my phone in there so that I had it recorded when he would go in, and it had his like little paws. He just jumps up and shuts it and just walks away right past the camera, like, leave me alone. So yeah, no ghost.
Okay.
I mean, there could be. I just haven't yet to see it. I mean, I wouldn't doubt it.
I think my dog is trying to make an appearance here. He keeps nosing his way closer and closer. Pretty sure his face is going to show here in a minute.
Listen, dogs get the views, man.
Yeah.
Dogs always get the views.
Okay, so the portal is a pretty significant thing to witness.
That's what changed my views fully from Gigantopithecus, great ape to interdimensional.
Okay, and I think, had I seen that as well, I think I'd be in the same boat with you. I don't think that's something that I would have been able to get.
It's hard to swallow mentally. I'll be honest with you. I still watch it probably a few times every couple of weeks because it's just so fascinating that I was lucky enough to catch this without even planning it.
Have you ever published it?
I've sent it to Paranormal, caught on camera, but they never got back with me.
Really?
Yep. So I would love to post it. I just would like a platform where it's going to really be appreciated. You know what I mean? Yeah. Because it's something that, holy fuck, what is this? Yeah. Either there's a shit ton of alien grays back here, or Bigfoot's an alien, or they're interdimensional.
Yeah.
Either way, it's not of human origin. It's in the back of a freaking local park. For crying out loud. It's like,
so you're not intentionally, but you are drawing correlations that I tend to pick up on. And so throughout my tenure of being interested in all these fringe topics, these Fortean topics, I've done a good deal of ghost hunting, investigating, with actual equipment. I've had an experience that when it happened, I didn't think was Bigfoot related, but years passed and 2 and 2 and 2 became 6. And I started putting things together and it was like, but that came after really going headlong into reading people's experiences and having talked to a number of people who had experiences. And here's the thing that I'll say. I've said this before on multiple shows that I think that what we're dealing with I don't know that Bigfoot is necessarily the watchdog or the golden retriever for extraterrestrials. I don't know that the relation is that close, but what I will say,
it's a catchy term that makes you think a little bit though.
But what I will say is that I do think all these things are related in that when you go into a haunted location, one common thing that a lot of people will report, and I've experienced myself, is hearing knocking.
And it's always in sequences of 3 for the most part.
Hearing a knocking on the wall. I've seen with my daughter, got it on film, the manifestation of a true orb. It wasn't a flash photography where my flash bounced off of a particle of moisture or dust in the air or anything. It literally came out of nothing manifested into a ball about the size of a golf ball, had a dull bluish light, had a whitish halo around it, and it was in our perception for maybe 2.5, 3 seconds. And it did this little zippity zoo, and then it was gone. It dissipated. So I've experienced an orb. I've been scratched in a prison that had been abandoned for years and years. So, as I said,
Can I ask what prison?
It was in, it's very close to Gary, Indiana. It's where the Johnny Depp movie about Dillinger was filmed.
Oh man. Oh, that's a tip of the tongue thing now.
I cannot remember the name of the damn place, but that was just 2 summers ago. I went there for a fundraiser. The lady who ran the prison, it was an outdoor, drinks and hors d'oeuvres. They had a live band. Somebody apparently had told the woman that I was the host of Uncomfortable. She came up. She goes, "Are you the guy with the ghost podcast?" And I said, "Well, yeah, I mean, ghosts and other things." And she says, after the entertainment's done, would you like to take a tour of the prison? And I was like, yeah, absolutely. I thought it was going to be a very quick walkthrough. It ended up being 2.5 hours. They literally took me on an entire tour of every aspect of that prison. We got into the very small area that was used for female prisoners for incarceration. And I think it was, if I remember right, 6 cells, just that small little block. And it was kind of separated from the mainstream where most of the men would be, obviously. I was getting kind of tired at the time. I was having some severe back problems. So I was sitting down on a table up against bars, and I put my hand back and grabbed hold of one of the bars. The cells were in front of me, and I was just kind of applying pressure to kind of twist my back and kind of stretch it out as I was sitting there. And I felt something very lightly across the back of the back of my right hand. And I immediately pulled my hand away because I thought spider web, and
I'd rather it be a ghost than a spider.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm not a big fan of spiders. And so the gentleman who was doing the tour continued talking, and I just, without thinking, I put my hand back up there again because I was trying to stretch out my back. And the next time I felt across the back of my hand, just like a real light finger touch, just roll across my hand. And I pulled my hand back again, and he looked at me and goes, "You all right?" I said, "Yeah, I'm good." And he's like, "What's going on?" And I said, "I got touched." And he's like,
"No big deal."
He's like, "Well, it's funny because in this area, we've had several people, all of them being males, saying that, but he's like, usually the men feel like somebody is tugging on the front of their crotch of their pants, like they're, near their crotch."
Whoa, easy now.
Yeah. So, we continued the tour. We went through a little bit more. We got done probably about a half hour after that happened. We were back down in the main part of the prison getting ready to leave. And I was starving. The hors d'oeuvres were just not enough to satisfy me. So we're walking Crown Point. That's the name of the town that the prison's in, Crown Point, Indiana. And I'm walking down the street with a couple other people that had gone with us from work. And there was like a gourmet macaroni and cheese place that was a few buildings down, and they were just putting the chairs up on the tables. And I opened up the door, and I'm like, "It looks like you guys are closing," but I said, "I'm freaking starving. I'll take whatever you got still sitting under a heat lamp or whatever." And he's like, "Oh, no worries, man." He's like, "The other half of this place is a bar." He's like, I can throw you up something fresh." So we went in there and sat down, and I was sitting at the table, and I looked down at my hand because I had a wristband that they had put on for access to the outside where they were doing the music and the food. And I had scratches across the back of the hand. So right where I felt the real light finger touch on the back of my hand, I had multiple scratches that were welted and red. And I was like, holy shit. So I pulled my camera, my phone out, and I took pictures of it. And I'm like, but, about a 90-minute drive home. And by the time I got home, there was literally nothing left on my hand. It was completely gone.
This is all from the same spirit that was touching you, you believe? The same ghost?
I think it had to be, because that's the only thing. I mean, they were significant.
Did you get a vibe like it was a kid, maybe a child spirit, or?
No, I couldn't give you a vibe one way or another. The only thing I have to go off of is that it was the women's cell block, and what that guy had said, that is, a lot of guys get touched, but most of them all report feeling like somebody grabbing the crotch of their pants, or
maybe the guards are running like a prostitution ring or something out of the female part of the prison.
I don't know.
That shit went down a lot back then.
But it was really interesting because they had what was called the universal cell block, and I just assumed that was universal. Like meaning there was no discrimination between, who went in there. It was, just everybody would go into this cell block. But no, universal cell block was Universal Pictures came in and they created the cell block that was filmed for the movie that Johnny Depp played, Dillinger, because Dillinger was held at that prison for about, I forget, it was 2 or 3 weeks before he moved out to another place. So they came in and they just, it was beautiful. But all of the cells were built out of wood. It was painted to look like steel doors and everything, but it was all wood. So the universal cell block was because it was Universal Studios who had done the work there. But I rabbit hole, squirrel.
Exactly. It's nothing but squirrels.
So
pick one.
I guess what I'm getting at is, like, when you go into a haunted house and you hear a knock, a wood knock, knocking on a wooden panel or a wooden door or whatever it is. But then you talk to people who have experiences out in the woods and they hear what they say is a wood knock, right? But yet, I'm sure you will agree that it is extremely difficult for a person to grab a limb or a twig or a stick in the woods and whack a tree with it and have it come out sounding like what a tree knock sounds like. Because when you hear a tree knock, in the truest sense, it sounds like a very hard wood, and it has a very distinctive sound to it.
Best thing that I've used, two of the best, is like a piece from a cord of firewood, just a real thick triangular cut that works, and then a Louisville slugger. Phenomenal.
Exactly.
For really carrying that pitch right through the forest.
Right. So, how many people have you heard talking about experiences in the woods where they see orbs?
Actually,
balls of light.
A lot more than you might think.
A lot.
Even in Bigfoot phenomena, quite often.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Then you go to what we were talking about earlier in the show: extraterrestrials, ultra-terrestrials, UFOs, UAPs, whatever the hell you want to call it. Balls of light, often associated with that. Strange mechanical sounds in the woods. A lot of people who have had Bigfoot experiences have reported hearing the sounds of door closing, like car doors closing, or mechanical sounding, metal type sounding noises that have no place in the area that they're at. Also in UFO experiences. So all this to say that knocks and orbs and mechanical sounds, and all that stuff seem to permeate all of these different types of experiences. And my thought is, rather than, I don't think anybody's ever going to capture a picture of a Bigfoot with a big long stick in his hand, swinging away at a tree, making a wood knock. I don't think it's ever going to happen. And so
wood knocking goes back to ancient pagan times, though. I mean, it was believed when you would knock on the tree in a sequence of three, that was how you communicated with the tree spirits. And I think that practice just carried on up through the field of Sasquatch research, all the way on up to knocks of three in the house. Yeah. I think it's just, hundreds and hundreds of years of just stuff being inherited. Possible. But I think that Bigfoot doesn't really knock. I think they're tongue pops. And knocking on the tree is the closest thing that we can get to replicate that sound.
And I would suggest that maybe those sounds, since they happen in multiple different types of experiences, might be a peripheral effect of those things coming into our ability to perceive them.
Like a static type pop or something like that, maybe? Nice, like a boom, I'm here. Okay, I like that.
Yeah. I mean, it's a theory.
Maybe that's what the portal is, just a bigger pop.
Yeah. When you saw the portal, excuse me, when you saw the portal, was there any noise to it? Was there any sizzling sound that accompanied it, or staticky, anything that you remember that was audible?
Here's the thing. When I had discovered it, my camera was on full zoom. This thing had to have been 400, 500 meters, if not maybe a little less, away from me.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm on full zoom, and it's late at night. It's still huge. I can't imagine the dimensions of this had I been lucky enough to be up close to see. So I would imagine, because I've heard people who've had portal experiences, there's like a hum or kind of like a shake or a static cling in the air. Mm-hmm. I would assume that would be very much the same. But again, I'm looking at this thing from, a quarter of a mile or plus away, and it's still huge. Like, it had to have been a massive doorway. Like I said, you'll be able to analyze it when I send it to you. Yeah. And I think you're probably not going to get any sleep tonight once you decide to take a peek down this.
I hope.
That's why it's
I do get some sleep, because I got a full day of work ahead of me tomorrow. So no sleep's going to suck, but I do want to see it.
Absolutely, man. I'd be happy to share it with you. Maybe you can, send it to the proper authorities or whoever can maybe get some good eyes on it.
Yeah. So other significant experiences.
Now, you've heard of them cloaking, much kind of like the Predator films.
I have.
You've heard the theories of them cloaking. Well, I'm not saying I saw the cloaking, but there's a certain part of the area that things just feel different. Like, that's a high activity area. Mm. And I'm coming around the corner, and this was just another hike day. I wasn't anticipating anything. I've been hiking this place since before I knew there was Bigfoot activity back there. And I turn the corner, and all of a sudden something moves at a speed that I couldn't tell you how fast. And there's just leaves. It's early fall. There's just leaves everywhere. And I look over. It's like frickin' the Tasmanian Devil from Looney Tunes came through. And I look over, and there's nothing but where it was. Almost like the Flash just ran past me. And then it's over here to my left. It does it again. I'm like, okay, you're out here. Fine. Thanks. Let me finish my walk. I'll go home after that. And that was one of the coolest experiences. But I believe they know when they're being watched. So sometimes, like when I'm with my buddy and we're talking, we'll hear something. I think they kind of time it to where they know, oh, we're being watched. Okay, I'm feeling photogenic today. I'll show up. Or not. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think that's how they are. They're moody. Bigfoot's moody. Let's be honest.
Have you ever had a really good Class A eyes-on sighting of one in its natural form?
Honestly, I want to say yes, but most of them are after the fact when I'm going over the video that I had no idea that I was, 25, 30 feet from a Bigfoot.
Yeah.
I'll send you that video too. It's me walking parallel to the tree line and you'll just see it turn into form, this big hunched over, 8 foot tall, hairy looking figure. I'll send you that one as well.
Okay.
And again, you feel free to do what you want with them. I'm just happy that somebody that actually gives a shit about this kind of stuff too can appreciate it, and at very least, be as astounded as I am.
Yeah. Anything else you want to cover before we get out of here? You have a Facebook page or a website or a group name or anything that you want the listeners to be able to contact you? Or
Absolutely, you can look me up on my Facebook page, just Scott Brush, or you can also join my Bigfoot group on my Facebook page, Urban Bigfoot. I'm really trying to push it out there that these things are not just 200 miles into the wilderness; they are in your own backyard, quite literally.
that I can attest to. That I have. I can attest to that. You are absolutely correct, because there's a gentleman who was he appeared in my episodes 2 and 3. I split it into a 2-part show. He had an experience on opening day about 10 years ago, at a public hunting parcel of land, and the entire pre-season was the pre-hunting season was filled with a bunch of weirdness. Then on opening day, he and his dad, his brother-in-law, and a cousin, they had one walk out in front of them at about 5:45 in the morning. Then he ends up having experience, along with his 2 daughters, having experiences at their home, which was by car probably 40 miles away from the hunting land. But it coincided very close time proximity to his initial sighting.
Then I believe they can follow you home, especially if they're something about you. You know what I mean? That's why I say don't feed them. Do not feed them, because the second you stop, it's going to get aggressive.
And his home is on the very far outskirts of a decent sized town. From his house, when the leaves are off the tree, you can see the back of the city courthouse. So when they're literally in your backyard, yeah, I agree. They are much closer than what I think many people would accept.
I mean, we're moving too fast. We need to slow things down a little bit. With Bigfoot in your backyard, for sure.
Yeah. And I don't know what the component to that is. Is it because we are encroaching so much on their on where they are able to reside unseen, or is there
I'd say that's a little
growing interest? Do they want to know more about us, or are they?
We're probably why are we eating Tide Pods? You know what I mean? Maybe that's what the Bigfoot what are the Bigfoot are asking us?
Yeah, thank God that whole thing
yeah
kind of went away.
But no, I think Bigfoot's just as curious about us. We're like, what are you guys doing? They're like, well, what the hell are you doing? So I think it's kind of like a mutual curiosity.
Well, it sure seems that there's some curiosity, because when you hear enough reports of people who have them peering in the windows, and leaving handprints on the side of their windows and their cars and stuff like that. I mean, they don't seem, and I guess by rights, why would they be scared of us? I mean, other than if we have a weapon, I'm sure.
I mean, I get that. It's I think that they're just like we are. Let's say I'm Bigfoot down in San Diego, chilling on the beach. Life's pretty good. I really don't have to struggle too much for my food. If I'm going up into northern Alaska, I'm going to be a bit more territorial and a bit more grumpy, because I don't have that kind of luxury. So I think that Bigfoot's mood and behavior is geographically related.
Now, I heard with the number of hurricanes that hit down in Florida. Um, I heard that there were a number of a significant rise in skunk ape um, sightings just after the hurricanes hit.
See, the skunk ape, this is where, it gets different for me. Nearly 30 years of researching the subject, and this one's like, I think maybe now some of them are interdimensional, some of them aren't. The skunk ape hasn't really, I mean, not that I've read any really out there stuff when there's been a sighting. It's just been somebody's out, fishing or hunting or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
There it is, or it's in their like the Mayaka skunk ape photo. I think that's authentic, and I think that's probably one of the best, most personal photos there's ever going to be
Right.
of that creature. Because it didn't look like an orangutan. It was way too large and hairy and more like Bigfoot looking. So I think that maybe that could just be an ape in that area. Maybe they're not all gifted. Maybe like the leaders have the powers, and maybe there's still some, lieutenants and soldiers. There could be a hierarchy. Who knows?
Well,
I just
you would
can't.
have to think just like the human race that the gene pools have been there's been segments of their population that were able to maintain a strong gene pool. There's probably segments of their population that have pissed out their gene pool to the point where there's like maybe I have to be careful how I say this, but like some out there that are somewhat challenged,
Yeah.
as opposed to others. It always strikes me that the reports that you get from the West Coast, the Seattle area, the Portland area, or the Oregon area, Washington, they always seem to be a lot larger, a lot more stout. It seems to have a bit more of a thicker coat of hair. They seem to reports from out that way seem to be a little bit more of the less aggressive, more tree hugger type. We love the earth. We're the guardians of the woods. We're the peacemaker. But then, Ohio is noted for, the Ohio grassman is typically more aggressive and not so friendly, and then you get down into Florida where it's hot, humid, it's sticky. It's, they have less hair, they have more skin showing through. They're crotchety as hell. They're always seem to be, have a bad attitude. Which if you were living in that kind of climate, I guess you would. I don't know. It just seems to be so many different personality types and so many different.
I mean, look at the Portlock, Alaska
types.
story.
Yeah.
Portlock, I've gone over it. It's so many times.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
And it's like, why was he so pissed? But then again, like the natives also said he was cursed. This wasn't like a normal Bigfoot. This was like some sort of skinwalker cursed shaman type Bigfoot.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't, your standard sort of typical Sasquatch encounter where it just kind of looks at you and walks away. This thing apparently killed tons of people and livestock. So
yeah,
it's fascinating. Like
it really is.
Really is. This guy has a family in his backyard and they're on a, hugging basis. This one's over here completely decimating villages.
Yeah.
It's, like it just makes you think. That primitive behavior, but it's still so intelligent.
Yeah. And I think a lot of the Native American lore about these things, the First Nations people, their stories always strike me with a chord of truth. And their stories of interactions with these things back in the day, and when they would trade with them, and there was regular contact between them. The accounts of I forget what the chief's name was, but when the smallpox was running rampant, and the Sasquatch came out of the woods and went up to the chief and presented their child with smallpox, and we're obviously obviously hoping that the Native Americans were able to help them and get their child healthy. And then the chief had the women bring their children out of the out of the longhouse to show them that theirs had the smallpox as well. You know, those.
I mean, I think our relationship got fucked up with Bigfoot after we invaded and killed the Native Americans.
Yeah.
Bigfoot got pissed. We were walking hand in hand with them, trading, being buddies. We come in, fuck everything up. Surprise, surprise. You know what I mean? And there's, I think that's why some of us are lucky, because I think they can read who we are. That's a good human being. They're, they got good morals. They got a pure heart. Okay, you're not going to fuck anything up. Sure, I'll let you see me. You know what I mean?
Well, I don't know that it would be any dissimilar to, a dog or a cat who can recognize that somebody is of good heart. And then you get a dog. And I mean, I've never met a dog in my life that has not been just happy to see me, but I've known people that they get around a dog and the dog, they don't want anything to do with them, and yeah, I know the people, but I don't necessarily think they're the greatest person in the world. It wasn't somebody that I would invite into my house on a regular basis or, tend to hang around with. And then you see how dogs react to that person, and it's like they know something, so
they're spiritual watchdogs too, not just physical ones.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, man, I definitely appreciate it. I know you probably need to start wrapping it up. I'm guessing we went out, we did down the UFO hole. So.
we did.
But I'd be happy to be on your show another time too, if you wanted to, because we could even do UFOs. Because I don't got a lot of people I can blab to this kind of stuff about before they're like, Scott, shut up. It's cool because it's a way to, no discriminatory platform, just let it flow.
Yeah. Yeah, there's something.
If you're gonna feed your Bigfoots, don't stop. You're gonna get pissed. Keep it up.
Yeah, I would suggest that. I was talking to a guy last night, and he does his research is putting out little trinkets and wicker things that have marbles inside of them, and placing things and then coming back to the same area and finding days later that they've been moved or that they've been taken out of something and then lined up perfectly in a straight line on another piece of wood or log.
Like a gifting area or something where the exchange kind of happens.
And he, through the conversation, I noticed that he wasn't necessarily thinking about it in the aspect of gifting. That was his way of reconciling that I'm doing some research. I'm doing this and I'm getting a response. I can do it again and I'll get a different response, but still a response. So he's looking at it as research, and I wanted to caution him that the way they may be looking at it may be different. They may be looking at it as you are gifting them something. And, if there's any truth to your belief that these things are of Nephilim bloodline and they may not be necessarily good, I don't think
what if the bloodline gets watered down, kind of like your 7th and 8th cousin? Obviously it's not as strong. Maybe it gets weaker on down the line.
Yeah. I've heard people talk about these things being empty vessels and being inhabited by demons, and it's like,
that's too far even for my weird ass.
Come on, man. Give me a break here.
I mean, I'm willing to go there, but I'm not going to stay there. That's,
yeah.
I like to stick around correlations that I can understand, like why they'd be connected. But that's, what I mean? That's apples and oranges right there. I can't. That's a separate topic.
Yeah, it's a very separate topic. It's something that I don't. I told you earlier. I have my belief in God I have a belief in a creator, And whether that is God as what we have been presented with the information that we've been told, or whether God is a extraterrestrial or an all-knowing force like in Star Wars, or whatever it is. I mean, I recognize it and I acknowledge that it exists, but
that's another episode.
I don't know what the hell it is. Yeah, interesting conversation. I appreciate you taking the time coming on.
Absolutely.
I wasn't coughing at all, and now I'm coughing because you're coughing. What's that?
How's your back, by the way? I know you had a little slip on the ice last week.
I'm good. It was like anything, you go down a rabbit hole of YouTube videos and reading, try to find what's the best kind of stretching to do for a sciatic nerve, and
piriformis. The piriformis stretch is what you want. Well,
when I came to it, and I found this guy, and he continued to talk about the piriformis, and basically you lay down on your back and you scoot up to a wall and put your legs on the wall like you were almost like you were sitting on a chair, so your knees are bent at 90 degrees, your feet are on the wall, and your back is on the floor. And then you take the leg that's being affected and you stretch it out, and all you do is take your feet and you pull them back towards you, and then you stretch it forward. You pull it towards you, stretch it forward.
My back feels better just thinking. I got second back issues too.
2.5 days. I could hardly walk. In 2.5 days, it was gone. I was like, man, this guy is a miracle worker.
There's a dude on Instagram, if you don't follow him, James Moore Wellness. He's got all these different positions you can get into to stretch and maybe even get a pop and stuff like that. How to use a broom handle to loosen your hips up and help your low back pain. I'm all for the chiropractic. I believe if you keep the spinal fluid going, the body stays happy and healthy.
Yeah. So that was brutal, because the days that it affected me at work, I felt like I was absolutely crippled, but thankfully it.
What kind of work do you do, if I might ask?
I work for a printing company. I've been a printing press operator for the last 35 years, 36 years.
That's awesome.
Yeah. All right, my friend Scott, it's been great talking to you. I got a feeling we're going to be doing this again. So
absolutely, I would love to. I look forward to it. I look forward to watching this to see how foolish I look. It's going to be hilarious.
Yeah, you did fine. Ladies and gentlemen, hope you enjoyed this episode. Scott Brush. He is, again, you can join his group. What was it called on Facebook?
Urban Bigfoot.
Urban Bigfoot. Scott, thank you so much. I appreciate you.
You too, man. I appreciate the opportunity. I can't wait to do it again.
Have a good night. Thank you.
You too, man.